6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast. I'm Chris at Lightforce, joined virtually by Anna Forsyth at A4Forsyth03. Currently unfit to podcast and apparently unfit to record one is Matt Lee at @Matt_61 and unfit to podcast as per usual practice. Adam Obanel Carter at Adam FOC. Welcome, Anna. How goes it?
Yeah, right. Getting a bit of deja vu, obviously. I think we did this already, but yeah, it didn't quite work out the last time, so we're going to go again. Much like the Canucks, we're going to go again.
Go again. If you happen to be a member of the C4 Discord, you already know that the internet ate the episode.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of the company line. But unlike the NHL, let's call a spade. Matt was doing the hosting and recording duties as I was not available, and the technology that he was using failed him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to blame Matt.
Yeah, Matt failed us once again. If he was here to defend himself, it would be a different story, but maybe we wouldn't throw him under the bus.
I'd still blame him.
Okay.
Come on, guys, let's get back on the rails. Let's back on topic.
Mm-hmm.
And then you rattle off what we were going to talk about, being it's a Canucks podcast and all that jazz. And I should also mention, you are listening to us on the Full Press Coverage Network. Full Press. Woo! They've actually got a Full Press NHL account, which needs a little more, Canadian hockey love. Full Press is run by a guy who has a Boston Bruins podcast.
Yeah, so everyone else, get on there, give them a follow, and just make your presence known as C4 fan, as a Canucks fan.
I wonder how Ian's doing as a Bruins fan, though, because, if there's one thing that Canucks fans enjoy is seeing the Bruins lose in the playoffs. Now, as we get into this episode, the Vancouver Canucks are only in it for as long as they can stay around. This episode is going to be more optimistic than the probably pessimistic-ish episode the two of you, Matt and Anna, recorded. That will never, ever be heard ever again. But we're going to use the rundown. And, let me just say, I was reading this over, and I was kind of wondering if it was just a full episode of half full, half empty and the F word.
Yeah, it was a lot of focus on the empty part of it, maybe. So maybe it was a punishment from the hockey gods for preempting our team's demise, which didn't happen. We're still fighting. As of today, it depends when you listen to this, but at the moment we're still fighting. So maybe that was our fault. We shouldn't have, put that bad energy into the universe.
Well, but that's the thing. Maybe that's what was needed, is your bad energy not only smited the podcast and had the episode go to the place that episodes that don't get recorded properly go, and the Canucks won. I mean, spoiler alert, they're still in the NHL playoffs, which I don't believe there were a significant number of people that thought might be the case, especially when news broke as to some adjustments that were being made in the lineup. But we're going to recap, a little bit of sort of the back-to-back that we saw into Game 5 and be talking about the possibility of Game 6. Beyond that, I don't know if we'll spend too much time talking about the other tidbits like roster construction and whatnot, because the optimism is kind of there. And you know what? We'll figure out some other way to occupy your time, as Anna and I are apt to do. So let's get ourselves on a rewind. The question, as written in the rundown, would you have rested Markstrom? And that was in reference to the fact that he played a back-to-back. I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast before. In fact, I think the episode that I was on, previously, I had sort of suggested that back-to-backs, Markstrom doesn't seem to do too well. Even in the regular season, he struggled back-to-back. So there's always that sort of second game was the weakest of the two. Not entirely sure if the back-to-back contributed to the fact that he didn't find himself dressed for Game 5 as he was deemed unfit to play. But would you have rested Markstrom similar to how Vegas rested Leonard?
Well, it's hard to say. Obviously, it's hindsight is 2020. I wouldn't have done it. Like, I can understand. Vegas are in a different position than us, and as well as Demko did last night, I don't think necessarily the goalies are on equal standing in the way that Vegas almost are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's more like 1A, 1B set up over there. Even though I would say Leonard's the clear starter, there's just, a closer gap between them. So they're in a different position than the Canucks are. So I do think if there was a niggle, although my Canadian friends have informed me recently that niggle isn't really a word that you guys use. So small injury that Markstrom was suffering, I think it would have had to escalate for them to make that decision, which they eventually did. And Demko stepped up, but
I look back at Game 4, Markstrom started. I think if the Vancouver Canucks had won Game 3, right, I believe then we might have entertained the opportunity of Demko playing, but that Game 4 was quote unquote must win before Game 5 became a completely must win.
Mm-hmm.
And you start your number one goaltender unless there's again a problem, which, as we know, there ended up being one. Even though, the result wasn't the way, obviously, Canucks fans wanted Game 4 to go, the Vancouver Canucks did well until they didn't do well. So, going into Game 5, when word breaks that, and I think it was Elliot Friedman that had suggested the idea first, that there is a good chance Demko will start. And Canucks fans, Canucks social media, Canucks Twitter, Canucks media, everyone started, just what, huh? Why? Like, why in the world would this happen? And then there was discussion of the possibility that Markstrom was hurt. And I think it was it Kelly Rudy might have commented about his knee, or, groin. Like everyone starts to throw on the tinfoil. It's like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And, what is a Vancouver Canucks playoff run without some form of goaltending controversy? That said, this is not like Schneider coming in for Luongo in 2011, where Luongo wasn't doing well. This is clearly Markstrom coming out because he's hurt, Demko having to go in, and hey guys, rally the wagons, hope this doesn't turn out too badly, which, spoiler alert, it didn't. Vancouver Canucks won. I won't suggest for a second that I wasn't full clinch for an entire 60-minute period. Like, even when the Vancouver Canucks, got that lead, I still just was like,
Yeah, I mean, that was a tough game. It was tough to watch. It wasn't easy on the eye, that's for sure. But yeah, that just gives more props to Demko for surviving the onslaught of shots, and he did it without making spectacular saves. So that just also just speaks to his positioning, which I know is something he and Ian Clark have worked very hard on. So yeah, props.
The way the game started, though, like Demko was getting stoned as Canucks goaltenders do. Like, we've talked about this on this podcast. For the Canucks to win games, they need stellar goaltending and the ability to generate offense. It's the Chris Golden style of, run and gun play that we see from Vancouver, and where they don't tend to do as well as when it's a tight game, unless again their goaltender goes and steals the win for them. Demko did just that. Like, was it the Canucks had like one shot on net for the first 10 minutes of the first
something
period?
Like that, yeah.
Like, I get that you need to play smart, but when you're being outshot something like 9-1, and you're down 3-1, it doesn't seem to add up to success. So when we saw that Vegas goal, I kind of like, I'll admit it, I was like, oh well, it was a good run.
Here we go,
like,
yeah.
I it's not that I had lost faith. It's just I'm a long-suffering Canucks fan. For someone who might go and say, well, oh, Chris, I can't believe you don't have faith. I have been around the Canucks far too long to know that things just go wrong. right? Like
Mhm.
more often than they don't. So to then get that goal back as quick as they did off the stick of Brock, it's
Yeah.
like, wow, this might be a thing.
While the goal is still being announced, which you just love to see when it happens that quickly. I don't know if I had lost hope as soon as that Vegas goal went in. And that's saying someone who was being pretty negative on the podcast, on the Lost podcast, the famous Lost
You negative?
Poor taste. I know, never. But I don't know if the needle particularly shifted from that Vegas goal. I thought we were still in with a chance overall. I didn't think it was necessarily the beginning of an onslaught. But I will say, yeah, overall, I wasn't that positive. Yeah.
You know, it wasn't that I necessarily expected an onslaught. I just didn't expect the Vancouver Canucks to be able to sort of deal with that level of adversity to the extent that they did. They were able to power through. We then see that second goal off the stick of Pettersson, which, again, I say off the stick because that's what they were.
Literally, yeah.
And then it was like, okay, we've got the lead. Let's go and lock this down. And the Canucks played some tight hockey. I was going to say clean, but it really wasn't that clean. It was tight. They forecheck hard. You saw players going down to block shots. Was it 70 some odd attempts is what Vegas had? I want to say.
Yes, I'm trying to look at the stats here. But 43 shots on goal but the attempts, I don't have that right here. Okay. But it was higher, obviously. But
and that's young goaltender. That's generally what happens: is you get in front of all the pucks to prevent them from going through. And Vegas was doing what a good team does with a young goaltender. Pepper the goaltender, throw everything at them, make them work. There were a couple times when Demko came charging out, sort of spinning laterally, making the save. But it's like, oh my goodness, what's going on? So I'm not trying to take away from the win. It was a win, but oh my goodness, did I expend a lot of energy. And the thing that we now have to consider is what happens going into game 6.
Right. Because the Canucks still, gave up a lot. The first goal, they just, wrote Vegas a written invitation to have a shot on goal. What was it, 4 Canucks who got past? 3 or 4 of them got passed by Shea Theodore on that play. So that's the thing that worries me, because yes, they were good at protecting Demko in the play after the whistle, and they stood tough in that perspective, but that doesn't matter if they're still getting the shots on goal.
Well, shots on goal aren't so much an issue if they come from the outside and they're dealt with accordingly. And that was something that the Vancouver Canucks did seem to do well enough, was to prevent that second chance, second opportunity. So allowed the kid to build some confidence. Going into game 6, though, if Markstrom is better, does he come back into net? Or does he at what level of better? Are we talking about 90%, 100%? I'm not trying to suggest he doesn't deserve to come back in, but I would hate for a goaltender to be hurting to have to go and face as many shots as, let's say, Demko did. Because Vegas is going to come out, they're going to want to finish it in game 6. They're not wanting at all to go into game 7.
Yes, obviously. Because you're looking at another back-to-back. Although I know Frankie is doing his darndest to make sure that doesn't happen, because I think they're trying to give Markstrom the best chance possible. But
sorry, did you'd said I'm presuming Francesco?
Yeah, Francesco is going to work with the league apparently.
Oh, I had not heard that.
Apparently he's trying to work an extra day of rest. Matt Sakaris was talking about that earlier today. So they're trying to get rid of that back-to-back, and they've offered to go back-to-back game 7 to game 1 if they make it through. So I think that would suggest that Markstrom's not right.
No, I know, but like, there's no way Vegas would be on board with that. Like, if I'm the loss, I mean, maybe they would be. I don't know, but like, good on Francesco to try to go and make this happen. But who that listens to this podcast would think the NHL would be like, you know what, Canucks, you're right. Let's do you a solid. Let's help you out. Like,
yeah, I mean, one, the Canucks don't get the good side of scheduling ever. Two, now that that's come out, Vegas is saying, no, you're clearly having a goaltender injury crisis.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, totally. I mean, Louis Domingue is taking off the apron and having to put on the pads, and Vegas is quite happy about that.
I mean, obviously, I'm not reading too much into the fact that Markstrom wasn't backing up, because I think they're just trying to give him his best chance, because
rest and rehab,
yeah. So yeah,
I can't remember who it was on Twitter that had said that because people were reacting to Markstrom not dressing, and whoever it was on Twitter had said, quite frankly, if Demko gets pulled,
it's over.
It doesn't really, it doesn't matter who's backing up, because it would have to be, that problematic for the Vancouver Canucks. And again, we're not trying to propagate that there was an issue or try to, throw Domingue under the bus. It's just Markstrom is the clear number one. Demko is the clear number two. Domingue's the clear number three. And the way it works in elimination games is you put your best lineup on the ice, your best goaltender in the crease, and you run with it. And that's why, sort of thinking about Game 6, like, I kind of feel you go with Demko. Like, if Markstrom is close, and Markstrom's going to want to play. Let's make that very clear. Okay. But if he's not 100%, you almost have to go and say, okay, we're going to get him in for Game 7. We want to give him the best opportunity for him to win Game 7. And what would that be? It would be to have Demko play Game 6. Now, the counter to that is, whoa, wait a minute. There's no guarantee of Game 7, and I completely agree. But what is it we know about Markstrom? Back-to-backs are tough on him. Mm-hmm. And if he's not 100%, which let's be real, who is 100% in the playoffs, are we not, as a Canuck fan, wanting to have the most successful opportunity available? And I kind of think Demko then Markstrom makes sense.
I find it so Leonard, hard because
Fleury relationship here.
We need to be. I think it's so close to, and you really would need to know at what position Markstrom is in, because I don't think it's a case of if there's any doubt about Markstrom, start Demko. I don't think that's the case. I think if it's a big problem, then yeah, of course, start Demko, because you don't need to win Game 6. You need to win Game 6 and 7. Like, winning Game 6 and losing Game 7 is the same as losing Game 6. Like,
true.
Same issue, right?
Okay, so
maybe, from that point of view, I'm maybe leaning more towards starting Demko, because then...
Like Demko?
No.
Oh, sorry, Demko for 6.
And then reassess, right? To give yourself the best chance of having Markstrom.
Yeah. Sorry, and that's like when I sort of said Demko then Markstrom. In my mind, Markstrom's targeted for Game 7. Like, that's if he's to play, that's the game. Not to suggest that he comes in, just because that part I wasn't implying.
Yeah, I agree. No, I wasn't suggesting that you think that Demko's the new number one or anything.
Oh no, this is nowhere near Schneider Luongo controversy, which some in Canucks Twitter, which is a very reasonable place, I must add, may suggest.
Yeah, I might have started a bit of a Twitter discussion on the topic.
Off the rails a little bit. The CEO of the GLCPC or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's trying to start a goaltending controversy.
Yeah, Clay Emo at Canuck Clay. We're not making this up. Go look at his Twitter feed from September 1st. It was September 1st, one of those 2 days. Clay was trying to start a goaltending controversy. And then when I called him out, because you know me, I'm going to hold Clay to account. Like, whoa, I can't believe the leader of the GLCPC would go and suggest this. And he's like, it's better than the the possibility of essentially the loss. I'm like, oh my God, Clay is gone negative. Goaltender controversy. Look at that.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
2020 is a crazy place to be, crazy time to be alive. I was going to say something on Markstrom Demko. I would say that although I was impressed by Demko, I think it hasn't changed my mind that I think they're not close in terms of Markstrom being a much better goaltender. I still want to bet on Markstrom for my future. Yeah.
So we've spent the entire episode talking about goaltending. Offensively, the Vancouver Canucks got 2 nice goals. I mean, both were deflections. What is it going to take, though, to have the power play generate offense? What is it going to take to actually beat Leonard or Fleury if they? I don't know if Vegas would do 2 goaltenders back to back if it went 6 and 7.
No.
I genuinely wonder what it will take to kickstart the Canucks offense to the way it was at times against St. Louis, against Minnesota, but also in the regular season. Or is it just the reality of the fact that Vancouver Canucks are playing a very good, Vegas Golden Knights team, that these are the results that we should expect, these very tight, close games? Because I always get the feeling at Vegas, if they could, not that they don't want to, they truly do. They want to blow it open, and they could. I don't get that same sensation from the Vancouver Canucks. Whether it's their zone entries that seem to be scuffed as heck, everything's drop pass, it seems. Drop pass or dump in. We're not seeing Hughes come in with confidence outside of that one goal forward.
Well, I do agree with that. I think, especially in the opening of the game, I think you really saw Vegas' strength in the squeeze in the neutral zone. Just the way that they control the play in the neutral zone. Honestly, it was like watching Klopp's Liverpool, the Gegenpressing. It was just it's very impressive how they made it so difficult for Vancouver to get.
How many
through.
listeners of ours have absolutely no clue what you're inferring?
But the idea is that, much like football's midfield, hockey's neutral zone, key area of the ice, that Vegas just decide, they can't get into our zone if they can't get out of the neutral zone, and that play is so impressive. So although I will say that, yes, we'd much like to see Canucks do better with zone entries, it also speaks to how good Vegas is in the neutral zone.
And the games that the Vancouver Canucks have lost, they've just had so much inability to get into the zone 5-on-5. Even on the power play, they seem to struggle at times. And then unfortunately the clock, burns away pretty darn quick. I kind of want, and again, this is probably me going and breaking that record over and over, is that sort of simple game of hockey where you take it into the zone and then in turn, crash that, get those blue collar goals. Whomever it might be, it's the net front presence. We've seen Horvat there. We've seen Miller there. We saw Brock there. And I don't think we've seen him since. I get that, with, Miller in the lineup and what have you, Brock's sort of, position and changes. But then even on the second power play, when it does get limited time, Vertanen goes there and he seems to have understood his role, but then they struggle to get the puck there. There's no rebounds. There's, Roussel's there getting his 10-minute misconduct for just existing or whatever it happens to be. I want to see more. French. Yeah, I want to see more Vancouver Canucks players sort of crash that, get down there.
Which
Vegas
I think
is doing it.
I think we talked about at the end of last week's episode, the one that still exists, is that, take advantage of those non-calls and around the goalie crease, like goalie interference. Don't know what you have to do to get called for that in the NHL these days. It's pretty hard to get a whistle there. So, keep crashing that. Get greasy.
If there's a puck that's loose, hit it. It's not loose by the time your stick gets there. Hit whatever.
Hit it
there,
anyway.
right?
Yeah. Because Vegas are doing that, and
you know what? It may or may not work, but I don't see how it hurts the Vancouver Canucks. Like, far too often do they seem to be wanting to make things look pretty. Like on the power play, they seem to want to move it around quick, but Vegas is doing a really good job at blocking lanes. And so as a result, there isn't much variety. It's like the first power play, it's Besser to Hughes to Petey to Hughes to Besser. Like it's those three. And then eventually it might come into the corner. But you know what? I think instead, time to go and have someone, whether it's Bo, whether it's Miller, even Besser could probably do it, is take the puck to the net. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, it's going to create chaos, but I think the Vancouver Canucks can actually deal with chaos on the power play. Like they can, especially with Hughes, who does have the ability to move across the ice laterally extremely quick. And he has a, heck of a shot on him. So it's no Edler who like goes out and breaks legs with his, but
no, but you're completely right, because if a power play you spend however long, like half the power play or 2/3 of the power play setting up one chance and it doesn't go in, then you've got like just the smallest bit of time for your second unit to have a go. But like if you are making that speed work for you and just instead of waiting for the perfect chance, crashing that, try and get the puck where it's supposed to go sooner rather than later.
That's right.
Rather than
the Vegas net, not the Canucks net.
Yeah, exactly. Just I agree with you. Like, I think we're too used to a certain way of doing the power play, which won't work on a team like Vegas.
Well, it's the Newell Brown approach.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So load it up, drop it back, come on into the zone. We're going to take ourselves a short break here before diving in half full, half empty. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast on the Full Press Coverage Network.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on it.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He didn't play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
Looking at the rundown that you and Matt had, and I'm just going to read this one verbatim.
Okay.
It's not over, but it's over. That's totally like how Matt would say it.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I guess he wrote that super positive Matt.
It's but he wanted to sort of look at what next year looks like. I actually don't feel it's time yet. And it's not like, I would have felt that we needed to had this episode actually occurred on Monday, which is a change for me because normally I'm the guy who starts to look sort of down the path, thinking cap implications, what have you, contracts and the like. But what I am genuinely curious about is what we're now possibly learning from Demko's play that could also, have an impact on someone like Markstrom, who still is yet to have a new deal. I'm not suggesting the Vancouver Canucks let Markstrom walk, but is it the possibility that if the Vancouver Canucks and Jacob Markstrom, camps are far apart, that the Canucks are maybe less, against the wall, knowing that Demko has at least had one high impact, high energy, do it all for the Marbles game in his belt? Like, I know it's only one. I'm not trying to suggest he's the new number one, as I've made very clear. But the Canucks need to make some tough decisions when it comes to money over the next 2 seasons. The cap is not going up. And they, unfortunately, are not the only team who will have to make tough decisions. So it's not as if there's going to be an ample market of, hey, can you take bad contracts from us? Right.
And I did notice that there's a few people having this discussion. Friend of the show, Cam Robinson, has... I'm going to read this tweet out because I just want to know what you think of it. Saying that Thatcher Demko has always had this potential. He needed time to marinate. He needed the opportunity. That is the point in his development where he's ready to roll. if you're going to move on from talent like Markstrom, Demko is a great bet, but it still has risk attached. Obviously, there's risk attached to Markstrom, but he's a safer option. And that's related to cap. Long term, though, walking away would be prudent.
Hmm.
And while I understand what Cam is saying, like, obviously, Markstrom's 30, and to quote a late great friend of ours, 30 is old. But goalies take longer to reach their peak, for one. Markstrom hasn't shown any sign of slowing down, apart from maybe this injury. But that remains to be seen how serious that is. I'm sure if it ends up keeping him out of Game 6 and 7, that'll be used by the Canucks camp as a negotiating tool.
Mm-hmm.
I am just so not ready to bet on Markstrom.
Bet on or bet against?
No, sorry, bet on Demko. No, that was
Bet on Demko.
bet
Okay.
on Demko.
That's what I thought you were trying to play.
Yeah.
But
Thanks for rescuing me.
no problem. That's what I'm here for. I am of two minds. One, I think the Vancouver Canucks make a genuine offer to keep Markstrom in a Canucks uniform. I think he has reached that point, as goaltenders tend to do, because goaltenders, they tend to play a little bit older. They become sort of at their peak a little bit, further in their career, and I think Markstrom is getting into that window. Which, if we look at the Vancouver Canucks, that window is, if it's not here now, it's here pretty quick. So I think that's a opportunity for the Vancouver Canucks to have a solid piece in the net between the pipes to ensure that they can then build out in front. Now, I don't feel Markstrom gets paid by Vancouver what he could probably get paid elsewhere. Now, it's not to suggest that it's huge money elsewhere, but what is it that Markstrom wants? I imagine he wants two things. This is his year to get paid, and two, he wants to win a cup. I think Vancouver has the pieces to provide you a sense that the cup is a possibility, but is his desire to win the cup not necessarily in the next 5 years, but in the next few years? So if the Vancouver Canucks were to go and find themselves in a position where they'd have to offer some maybe stupid money, like we're talking Louis Eriksson money, then I suggest, Markstrom, peace be with him. He'll get that money elsewhere. And the Canucks roll the dice with Demko. And I will give you sort of the belief on that is if they do go with Demko, look at what Montreal did today. Mm-hmm. Right? Montreal has brought in a proven goaltender to back up Carey Price by the name of Jake Allen. I think it's interesting by St. Louis in so much that they are now going all in on Binnington. But two, I do get that they're doing this to free up cap space to allow for them to go all in on Pietrangelo, which, the Canucks are going to have to make some tough decisions themselves in the next few years. So if you go with Demko, is there a Jake Allen out there that could back him up?
Well,
and I'm suggesting a Jake Allen to back him up, but like I'm trying to think in a similar Vancouver Canucks scenario where you had sort of a young goaltender. I guess like Kluche and Essensa would be the probably closest, tandem where that might have existed in the recent years. But
sure. My concern is, side note on that Habs deal, I see what they're doing, but overall, I think Jake Allen is a risky goalie.
Well, no, but you think about it. You got Carey Price in the net. He's your clear starter.
Also, Carey Price hasn't deteriorated in the way that we thought he might, if we're being honest. Given the Habs team that's in front of him, he seems to be continuing to perform, and they're trying to retool, and it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere soon. Anytime soon. There we go. But my worry with Demko is that, obviously, I agree we shouldn't be offering Markstrom stupid money. If he thinks he can get it elsewhere, sure. Goalies struggle on the market to get their actual value.
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know who's looking to upgrade their goalie situation.
I think I genuinely think there's a few teams that are going to, like, for a free
find
agent, they're
someone,
going
for
to pick
sure.
up the phone, right? Yeah.
He just won't. There would be someone who would pay him, but just goalies struggle to get what they're worth. My worry is, if we bet on Demko, is that we're just closer than we thought. I think this team is better than we thought when we started out this playoffs. And I'm not saying we're there. Like, I think going up against Vegas shows us that there is still that way to go. But Vegas is one of the best teams in the league. And at this present moment, we're still competing with them going into Game 6 of a playoff series.
Yeah.
And I just worry that Demko, like, is who we'd want to, where the team was 2 years ago. That's the kind of goalie for that team, not this team.
So if the Vancouver Canucks side Markstrom to a long-term deal, I don't see how Markey goes short. Like, it would be really weird if Markey goes short. He needs term at this point in his career. What do the Vancouver Canucks do with a Demko at that point? Because now we have to start to consider expansion draft and the fact that, will Demko be fine as a player to simply be the backup, maybe the heir apparent? Like, again, a comparison here is Schneider Luongo. The difference, though, was that Luongo was more high and low Markstrom than Markstrom is. Markstrom's relatively stable. And I mean that in sort of their game. Like, when Luongo had a bad game, it was a bad game. But then he could also, like, completely board the net up, stand on his head, goaltend blindfold, and stop every single puck thrown his way. Markstrom doesn't have that peak, but he doesn't have that significant value. Schneider comes in, acquits himself relatively well, doesn't get the necessarily the same success, but if there's something that the Vancouver market loves, it's a backup goaltender. And then eventually, push comes to shove, the Canucks need to deal a goaltender, and Schneider happens to be it. Now, how did it turn out in hindsight? Actually, really, really well. How would you go and do that deal again? Bo Horvat for Schneider? Damn straight you would.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, 7 times a week, twice on Sunday, but...
Yeah. But I look at Demko and I kind of wonder if that's now creating that situation here in Vancouver. I'm not wanting to awfulize this. I have faith in Demko. I have faith in Markstrom. But the Vancouver Canucks need to think almost a few years ahead. Like, in the past, we've always sort of inferred that, Jim Benning has to deal with what's in front of him now. And arguably he may or may not have done well with that. Obviously, we all have different opinions. But now, with how the cap was going to be relatively stagnant, they've got some deals that are going to have to be dealt with younger players and an expansion draft. So
yeah, I do see what you're saying. My issue would still be we're probably going to lose one of our goalies, whether that's through Markstrom walking away. Or the expansion draft, or the fact that Demko doesn't want to back up all his life.
Yeah.
We're going to lose one of our goalies probably sooner rather than later. My issue is, do you see, like, Demko being good enough to lead the team to a cup in 3 years' time? Like, within 3 years? Because I think that's the window.
Yeah, so if I look at it today, Markstrom is yards ahead of Demko, right, in that scenario. Could Demko do it? Yeah, I could, but I don't have anywhere near the book on Demko to understand if he isn't, a Corey Schneider in New Jersey, right? Like it. So if I had to go and bank on the next 3 years, I'd bank on Markstrom. I wouldn't necessarily throw the bank at Markstrom to do that, but you're right. If I had to go and say I need one, Markey is the one I'd probably take. And I guess, thinking about that even further, if, let's say, the Vancouver Canucks lost to Demko, there is still a DiPietro in the mix who's, arguably as good, but yet even
we know even less, yeah.
Right? So, what is it being a Canucks fan and having to handle goaltending contract.
I know.
Where's our Carey Price?
I know. Well, it was Luongo. It was 2011. That was our Carey Price.
Yeah. And,
Anyways,
the coach run him out of town.
Anyways, I will say that I understand how Demko is a smarter, more value deal long term. I just don't know if it's going to matter. That Demko's an amazing goalie in 5 years' time. Maybe.
Well, no, yeah, and that's the thing. Like that, you're right. In the window, you're right. It's probably I'd say it's a little more than 3, but
less
that's
than 5. 4.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Like it's. If Jim Benning can work magic, get rid of an Eriksson contract, Sutter, and I'm not trying to say get rid of Sutter. He's, as I said last episode, he has impressed me. He is continuing to impress me. I just wish that Sutter wasn't making Sutter money, even though, yes, he could probably get that anywhere else in the league. It's not, that money is not being spent where the Canucks probably need to spend.
Yes, I mean 100%, but I think we need to get rid of Louis in the offseason. Like, we need to deal with that, whatever happens with the goalies. Like,
yeah, maybe Trader Jim can pick up the phone and make magic happen. I've been thinking about it the past week. I think this is the most optimistic that I've ever been about Jim Benning, and I've not been a fan of his from the get-go. Is that I hope he can work magic, because the Vancouver Canucks need that from him. In fact, you think about what is probably the most impactful change that's going to take place for the Vancouver Canucks in the offseason. It's Jim Benning magically making things happen, because they've got a good core. It's a really good core. It's a core that's now shown that they're ahead of schedule. It's a core that's getting experience that, quite frankly, I don't think any of us had really expected that they'd be getting. Like, was it Hercules that had said it in C4 Discord? Is they're playing with house money right now. They truly are. And to your point, that window being 3 years is probably a reasonable expectation without having the Chicago Blackhawks reset, which Chicago did very well for until this year.
Until they didn't.
Maybe last year too, but
it's just, and then moving on from goalies, like, if you're giving your goalie the best chance, is this D giving your goalies the best chance going forward? Like, we'd say no, and yet we're spending like $6 million of that money on Tyler Myers, who's already had a bad injury come back, probably still playing injured. And again, I don't think he's a bad defenseman. He's just not a $6 million defenseman. And he can't be paid or played that way. And we're probably going to lose one of our key defensemen as well.
Well, Edler's back for one more, and Tanev needs to sign. Troy from Richmond, he comes back only because Tanev doesn't, I think. Like, that's not even guaranteed he comes back. The blue line is going to be a lot different next year. That is the only real definitive thing we know about this roster, and that's whether it's because the Vancouver Canucks can't afford the blue line, or 2, they make deals or adjustments to bring in new personnel to try to shore the blue line up, which even then they don't have a whole lot of wiggle room to play with.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right on that. We would say that we're not happy with this defense core, and yet we can't even afford the current one, so I might end up upgrading. Yeah. Again, awfulizing when...
Look at that. You and I get together, this podcast goes so negative. It's like the Anna plus Chris equals Adam.
I think it's probably me dragging you down. As you say, like, we're still in this series, and who knows what we can pull out the bag, because that game yesterday was pretty ugly, but the Canucks won.
And the Canucks found a way to win. That's what, if anything, I actually hope they have another game like that in Game 6, because that's the type of experience that is going to serve these kids so well. It's battling through adversity, finding ways to win when the odds are so against you. Like it just, we need more of that. And if they could do this all the way to a Stanley Cup, that'd be phenomenal too. Like, again, I drew parallels to the 94 team after sort of the play-in and the St. Louis series. There are others now drawing parallels to the adversity the Vancouver 94 team faced. Now, granted, the 94 team faced this adversity against the Calgary Flames in the first round, where they had to come back and win it in 7. But that 94 team was a team that had no business being where it was, and yet suddenly came within a Nathan Lafayette post of potentially winning a Stanley Cup in the Big Apple. So,
yeah, I mean, you're right. I do hope we get more shots on goal. They don't have another imbalanced game there, because as impressed as I was with Demko, I don't know if he can withstand that. So do a better job. Be nice to your goalie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We're going to skip the F word, because I don't quite frankly feel that there's anything to get all riled up about. So
I think we've done our riled up.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, we got sort of riled up, but not too bad.
Yeah, you were totally riled up, Anna. I could see the steam coming out of your ears. It
That's
totally.
just a redhead thing that just happens all the time.
But why don't we wrap this episode up? This special episode, it's coming to you midweek, which is highly unusual. And again, that's all because of the interwebs eating the regularly scheduled episode that was recorded by you and Matt earlier this week. But being that you are our listeners, be thankful that it's the Chris and Anna show, because we're a whole lot more optimistic and positive, even though totally got brought down there when we started talking half full, half empty. Oh, you know, the Stanley Cup playoff has been fun.
It has been, honestly. Like, having the city, like, it's different. Obviously, it's 2020. But being around the city, being in spaces where you can hear social distance cheering again, you know, wear your jersey around town and people are making comments to you. It's a fun place to be. And I can't wait for us to be, if it's all over tomorrow, I can't wait for us to come back again.
You know, and those are the words that I had said to Marnie, my wife. I had said that if the Vancouver Canucks were to lose, I'm invested into seeing what's happening, you know, when it kicks off, which we still don't know when. I think the last scuttlebutt was it'll be like games on January 1st, 2021. But no, like even beyond sort of the Vancouver Canucks, I'm watching, you know, the bits and pieces of other series. Like I'm curious if Philadelphia is going to go and find a way to come back themselves. Like they're making that series a whole lot more interesting than it appeared it was going to be.
Well, wouldn't it be fun if we had a little, you know, Philly and Vancouver just overturn their deficits and just with the little engines that could?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, and you think about it, if teams overcome that type of adversity within the playoffs, I don't imagine you want to play against them, because they've already shown that they can dig deep and they know what that feels like.
But it's
a scary force to go up against.
If Vancouver end up playing Philadelphia Flyers
in a Stanley Cup final?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, totally. I would totally be okay with that.
Then that's our opponent. Yeah, right.
Not to pop this bubble here, but that would be a long shot.
It would
Vancouver
indeed.
Canucks get through
put a bet
Vegas.
on that, guys. Listeners, put your bet on that, because if that comes through, you are cashing in.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, like, if the Canucks get through Vegas, that's awesome and all that, but I'm not entirely sure how
they have to get through this crazy Colorado or Dallas.
Yeah, like. To me, whoever comes out of that series is probably representing the West in the Stanley Cup final. So, hey.
It would be nice to get another West champion again, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It's not Boston. I don't really care at this point.
Yeah. I mean, even if we went out in Game 5, we would have outlasted Boston. So that's the main thing,
right.
Honestly.
In the words of the great John Tortorella, moral victory. But as we wrap up this episode, if you happen to be looking to find us online, go to the c4podcast.com. It'll go and redirect you to canuckshockeyblood.com, and you can find all of our episodes there. We're on Twitter at the C4 Podcast. We're on Facebook, C4 Podcast. If you want to join Discord and take part in the conversation that happens in Gate 16, whether it be Hercules going to the wall for Jake, or Nexus and Bearded Canuck going back and forth with opposing opinions, or Bearded Canuck just shamelessly promoting his own podcast in our Discord, because
he's shameless that way.
He is. And, so actually, as an aside, there seems to be, Canuck Social, this perspective that there's too many podcasts. There maybe is, but why does that matter? Like, if you listen to C4, it's probably because you enjoy, the banter between, Matt, Anna, myself, Adam when he shows up. Maybe it was back in the day when Clay was around. That's what's most important. If you find lots of Canucks podcasts you listen to, I can assure you there's probably some that sound the same and some that sound quite a bit different. But the most important thing is just, in my mind, supporting each other. Plus, everyone knows that C4 is the best, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So if you have a Canucks podcast, why not come into our Discord, carry on the conversation, and maybe you can be shameless too. Though I will point out, if you just drop links to your podcast in our Discord, Anna will probably ban you.
Yeah. I don't even know how to do that, but I will learn how to do that to ban you.
Yeah. But if you want to join our Discord, it's discord.io/C4 podcast. That is discord.io/C4 podcast. And at very least, when you join, you'll get welcomed by all of us, including a special gift from me. But any final words of wisdom you have for all of our listeners there, Anna?
I will say, I know we talked about the internet eating our previous podcast. I don't know if you or the listeners heard during that recording, but my tummy was rumbling quite a bit. So I want to clarify that it was not me that ate the podcast, and we're not in danger of that happening. Just want to put it out there. Clear the air.
Interesting. Glad you did not eat the podcast. As for me, thanks for tuning in. We're also playing with house money as far as our podcast is concerned, because the Vancouver Canucks continue to be in the playoffs. And we've been going at it nonstop throughout this pandemic. You think about it, the NHL season came to a jarring halt in the middle of March, and we've continued to pump out weekly episodes throughout. I don't know of many Canucks podcasts that have been doing something similar, because again, it's difficult to go and simply talk for the sake of talking for some, and others who are, more akin to Matt, who want to stay fully on the rails, because Matt never goes off them. It becomes, troubling experience. But no, we'll continue to be around. But as I said, playing with house money, we'll see how far these weekly episodes can continue. So if you want to hear the C4 podcast every week for the next few months, do everything in your power to share on the Vancouver Canucks and get them through to the Stanley Cup Finals. So on behalf of myself, Chris at Lightforce, Anna at A4Safe03, Adam at AdamFOC, and Matt at MattLee_61, who we should give a shout out to, is still doing wedding planning. It's why he's not here with the two of us tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that's impressive given we're in the middle of a pandemic and who knows when they can actually get married. But, got to keep that train moving.
Yeah, and he's being efficient about it, because I don't know if listeners recall, but it took 5 years for Marnie and I to get married. We were engaged for 5 years. And then finally, I just got tired and said, let's get married. It was me, which is weird,
romantic.
I know. We got married in Hawaii.
Well, that's pretty romantic.
It was. Shout out to Matt. Hopefully you found was it a DJ or a band or something?
I think there were no wedding bands, so rings. They were going
rings.
Ring
shopping. Okay. I thought I interpreted band as music, but no, you're probably, makes better sense. That's probably the safer bet. Yeah. But on behalf of all four of us, thank you for tuning in each and every week. We'll be back again next week. And the week after that, we've got a pretty solid guest lined up. So we'll let you know more about those details shortly. So those final two words you've probably been waiting for me to say as I've rambled and rambled and rambled and rambled on. We out.